The summer before my final year of college, I took an internship at a mid-sized business firm downtown. The job was simple, mostly spreadsheets, organization work, and trying not to fall asleep at my desk. The intern section was basically a cluster of tiny cubicles shoved together in an open corner of the office. Out of the 8 interns, most were normal, laid-back, friendly, and just trying to get experience on their resumes. One guy, Eric, typed aggressively enough to sound like he was punishing the keyboard. But the strangest person by far was a tall, lanky guy named Alden. He had uneven dark hair, pale skin, and a habit of staring too long before speaking. At first I thought he was just awkward. But then he started popping his head over my cubicle wall every single day. Literally just his head, appearing slowly as if he were rising straight out of the floor. He'd grin at me, teeth showing, barely blinking, and talk in this bizarre, whispery voice like he was trying to imitate something unsettling. "Working hard, or hardly working, Ryan," he'd say, holding that unnatural smile. I tried to laugh it off. Everyone's weird at internships, right? But the habit escalated. Soon he'd stay there for several minutes, watching me type, repeating strange phrases that didn't fit the conversation. The other interns assumed we were friends because he never bothered anyone else, just me. Then one night I got a call from an unknown number. When I answered, no one spoke for several seconds. Then, in that exact breathy, performative voice he used at work, I heard, "Storm's rising, better keep your windows locked." Followed by manic laughter, and the call ended. I'd never given him my number. The next Monday, he wasn't at work. Our supervisor told us he'd been dismissed the week before for refusing to complete assignments. When I told the supervisor about the call, he seemed genuinely surprised. Things calmed down for about a week. Then one morning at 5 a.m., I woke up to a noise outside. When I looked out my bedroom window, I saw someone standing in my backyard, half hidden near the tree line. Tall. Thin. The hair. The posture. It was Alden. He tilted his head back, saw me watching, and called my name in that same theatrical, unsettling whisper. Then he broke into wild, uncontrolled laughter. I yelled at him, threatened to call the police, and he slowly walked away into the trees, still laughing. The police said they couldn't do much unless he attempted to break in or threaten me directly. I never saw him again. He vanished, quit town, disappeared, who knows. Years later, I still think about him sometimes. Especially that look he gave me from the backyard. Like the joke wasn't over. Like he was waiting for a punchline that only he understood. Story 2. The coworker who knew too much. I was 17 when it happened, my first real job at a grocery store in a tiny Vermont town. Most of us teenagers worked up front, chatting and goofing around whenever business was slow. One of the stock workers, Shane, was older, maybe 24. Awkward, quiet, and always lingering near conversations he wasn't part of. I barely knew him. Eventually, I got added to a group chat for employees, and that's where he started messaging me privately. At first it seemed harmless, questions about work schedules, small talk. But soon he was asking about my hobbies, my weekends, my favorite shows. I never told him much, but somehow he kept knowing things anyway. One day at work he casually said, "You watched that sci-fi show last night, right?" I had. But I had never mentioned it at work. I'd watched it alone, in my room, with the curtains closed. A few nights later, as I lay in bed trying to fall asleep, I heard tapping on my bedroom window. Soft, rhythmic tapping, as if someone wanted my attention but didn't want to be caught. When I looked outside, there was no one there. But I couldn't stop thinking about how Shane seemed to know more about me than I'd ever told him. When I finally messaged him and told him I wasn't interested in talking anymore, he responded instantly. "Sure. Good luck changing your address." That was enough for me. I showed the messages to my manager and the police. Shane was immediately fired, and we started the process for a restraining order. Even with the order in place, I barely slept for weeks. Every noise outside made me think he was back. Every shadow made my heart race. It took months before I could walk home without checking over my shoulder. Shane never came back. I never saw him again. But to this day, I still triple-check my windows before I sleep. Because sometimes danger doesn't look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like someone quietly learning everything about you. Story 3. The Storm Shift. When I was 26, I worked at a tiny insurance office tucked behind a strip mall in Pennsylvania. It was quiet, routine, and the kind of place where the walls hummed from flickering fluorescent lights. One Friday, a violent storm hit the area. Most of the staff were sent home early, but I stayed late to finish filing reports along with a new employee named Caleb. He'd only been there 2 weeks, tall, monotone, and distant in a way that felt unusual. As the storm roared outside, the power flickered repeatedly, giving the room a dim, stuttering rhythm of light and shadow. Caleb worked silently across the room, barely moving except for the slow turning of pages. Something about him made my stomach twist. He never checked his phone, never hummed along with the radio, never reacted to the thunder that boomed so loudly it made my desk vibrate. Around 7 p.m., the storm knocked the power out completely. The office went pitch black. I heard Caleb stand up, slow, deliberate footsteps, and for a moment I couldn't see a thing. Then lightning flashed through the window. He was standing only a few feet behind me, staring. I pretended I hadn't noticed and told him calmly that I was heading home. He didn't answer. He just watched me walk to the door. The next Monday, he quit without notice. To this day I don't know if he meant to scare me, or if I simply caught him in a strange moment. But sometimes when a storm hits and the power flickers, I remember the silhouette behind me. And how long he must have been standing there before I noticed.